Anyway, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anita. Thank you for being here today while we are trying to support everything that's for us and by us and learning the language behind it, right? Having a clear conversation. I want this to obviously be open. I think that's why they invited me to come and not host the conversation, but navigate it. But I'm sure I have the same questions that you all have, that they have. So to introduce myself, I'm just a social worker. I'm a mom. I work with behavioral health members, adolescents, adults. Yes, it's a passion of mine, but there is a lot of burnout. However, right, much with anything that comes with being Black, there is that background of I must strive for excellence. So we're never just doing one thing. So I'm really appreciative, and I think I can speak to the Creative Control team by saying thank you for being here, whether you're a vendor or just a participant. So please, any questions that you have, I think it might be okay if you just raise your hands if you want to interrupt for a moment to maybe get clarification. But anyways, if you just need my attention, Anita, it's fine. So with us, we have investors, philanthropists, I got that mess up from you earlier, CEOs, co-founders, and I'll introduce them by name, but I really want you to share your story. I apologize, I made one of you like ramble earlier, but it's because I'm nosy and I want all of the tea, just like I'm sure everybody else does. Yes? Yes. I love the feedback. Keep talking. Okay, so we have Ms. Chantel. Do you want me to say last names?
Yeah,
Ms. Chantel Mayo, a philanthropist, an investor. She knows more like a beauty guru. I'm putting my own word on it, and I feel like she didn't have to say that, we know that, right? So I think that speaks for presentation in your brand as an individual. And then I know, Miss Hilina, I'm going to mess it up. Ajakaiye. I was close. Miss Hilina Ajakaiye, who really is, I memorized it, so the National Coalition for Black Meeting Professionals, which is a mouthful, but because it feels like it's important, especially for our community, especially for anyone who wants to categorize themselves as a professional. So thank you for being here, because we definitely want to make sure that while we want to be relatable to our peers, but we still have to be professional on paper to add legitimacy, right? Okay, and then my favorite, who I already bought it, that's why I made her go last, Ms. Keyla Williams, co-founder, CEO of BOGOsplit. That I'm not gonna...
Imposter syndrome is real. And it's something that I deal with all the time. But again, support is important, right? I have my team here, my brother, who's a co-founder. A lot of the times when I'm walking in Copley, because I remember as a young girl going into Copley for my marketing class, and they used to take us to tour. And I used to just think like, man, I can't wait till I'm a professional and I have money to be able to shop there. I never was thinking, oh, I would own a store there that now houses 51 local vendors in that space. Mhm. Thank you. Yeah, and so every day, I fight with that. Sometimes I'm walking in the mall and I'm like, real, like, who do I think I am? And then I'm like, no, I'm that girl.
You're that girl.
You have to really self-talk is important, right? But for me, it meant a lot to be able to pour into my community. So every time I go into the storefront, that's where I get my energy and I get that drive to continue and say, like, what else can
So I think regret is a real word, and I applaud you for using it. But before I dive in, I just want to congratulate the team that's here for creating this space, and I'm so honored to share with these two incredible women who I've known both of you from a distance. I know Kayla very well, so thank you for having us, first and foremost. So I think so. First, for me, and I'll go back to I think maybe even how Kayla and I met. So I spent about 20 years in food retail. I was at Ahold Delhaize Stop and Shop, minding my own business, figuring out how cans of peas and corn went on the shelf and where food equity existed. So my hallmark and how I was raised, I'm Ethiopian. I'm a very proud Ethiopian Black woman, and I've been in Boston since 1987. So my entire existence from undergrad to graduate school at Northeastern has been about making space and taking up space. And how do you do that? In 2020, I took on my role at the Convention and Visitors Bureau as the first executive vice president I think the organization has ever hired. Which, yeah, we want to clap, but it's kind
Yes.
of it's a
Yes.
little late. But and so you asked me if there's regret and if there's some things that keep me up at night. And when I got there, I think there was only two. And so just so we all know, hospitality and tourism is a $22 billion industry just in the city of Boston. So when you think about the fact that we get millions of visitors, all of you here that are makers and creators, you are what makes this place a beautiful place to visit. But when I got there, there were only two members. We're a membership organization, only two members that were Black. It was, I think, Grace Bainia at the time, Daryl's, and Douglas, my boy Douglas. Love him, Mita, he was a member. But we didn't have the brilliance of the Kaylas, and we didn't have members that felt like the industry belonged to them. So it kept me up at night. So I spent a good part of my 6 years there creating access to that space so that the $22 billion is not just consumed by folks that come here, but also folks that live here. And in my current life, I think, in my current role at the National Coalition of Black Meeting Professionals, my job is Chief Strategy Officer. So it's simple. I get to be the thinker and people execute. But what keeps me up at night there is meeting planners. Same thing. It's still hospitality and tourism. If you think about the convention center today is booked until 2047.
Wow.
So there's someone coming into that convention center every day, every week, and they're bringing their money here. My question to you all, and I'll stop there, are they spending their money with Kayla? Where are they going? We know, and we need to change that narrative so that they come and spend with the Black community that we all live in.
For me personally, I've had my hands in a couple of different things so far. I've had a kids clothing business. I have the Galentine's experience. I've had hair care. A lot of different things, went different directions. My initial interaction with the kids clothing business was great, but I was burnt out. I was the videographer. I was the web developer. It was my kids. I had to do their hair. It was just a lot, and I was burnt out. I couldn't keep it going. So I felt that feeling, and I have stepped back. I became pregnant. It wasn't really something that I could continue on with. And, I have fell off and had to figure it out and pivot. But then I see complete success in Galentine's. I think it really just that I found joy in doing that compared to it just being a job for me. So I think it's really about finding your passion and doing what aligns with your day-to-day life. Not that I'm partying every day, but I'm working so hard to get to that point throughout the year.
Work. Um, Again, it's that you're pouring into your community. So I think, or to Chantel's point, like once you find your purpose, then it makes it right? To keep doing it. And for me, I do feel like I've gotten back what I'm putting in because of the love that I get, right? And the stories that I get to listen to every single day. Having people coming to us that it's like, oh, I closed my storefront, but because of you, I'm able to now have a space, right? Or we have a designer that she's older, she stopped designing. And when we came on board, she did a show with us, and now back on full time, designing, working on a new line. So those stories, just for that one person alone, I the work that I'm putting in, I'm getting back. The one, yeah, the one. And there's one every single day. There's so many stories. And so to be able to be that, again, that access, that open door for my community. And it's something that, growing up as a little girl, like if my mom had access to it, it would have made a difference in her life. And so for me, that's what it is. Like knowing that I can change one person's life. Gonna say, I think my brother knew my purpose before I knew my purpose. because he brought me into this. So for me, it was people around me seeing something in myself that I was shying away from. So I've always loved fashion. I've always loved people. I decided to go to nursing school. And after nursing school, I was working. I did bedside. I went to community nursing. Um, and as I was doing that, my brother was growing a different version of pretty much what this platform is. And so I remember one day he's like, "Oh, I'm working on a proposal." And I'm like, "Oh, let me hear it." And so when he told me, I was like, "That's amazing!" Like, and I love stuff like that. I love strategy. I love solutioning. I love building stuff. And I said, "Let me write the proposal." And I wrote the proposal, and he was like, "This is amazing. Like, this is good." And he was bringing it to a college, and then fast forward, him and his best friend Adriano, who's not here, who's for us
Shout out
right
to
now.
Adriana.
Yeah, shout out to Adriana, exactly. They approached me and they said, "Hey, would you like to join us on this venture?" And when I started, this has been, I have to say, it's been hard, but however, the most seamless thing I've also done in my life. But I think it's because through this, I found my purpose. My purpose is to be that access for the community, to be able to be a voice for my community, to be who I needed as a mentor when I was a little girl, right? And so, yeah, I guess, to answer your question, I think somebody else saw my purpose, right? Before I saw my purpose, I embraced it and I walked in it. I don't want to leave.
For me, I feel like sometimes you need a little bit of help finding your purpose. I don't want to throw the Bible at you guys, but sometimes you might find your purpose in church, like sometimes you're just a girl living life, a guy living life, and then you have kids and you find more purpose in that. Sometimes you might need to read a book. I had to read a book. I had to read The Purpose Driven Life. I started off, really good book, in a journal. I started off doing hair. That was my initial thing that I had to do. I didn't have papers. I wasn't able to go get a 9-to-5 job like all the rest of my peers. I wasn't able to continue on going to school outside of what I had to do out of pocket because I just was a dreamer, right? And I didn't even learn that until I was old enough to try to apply for college. So I was born in Trinidad. So my story is a little bit different because of that, and I had to watch my peers move on, and I had to hustle. So I'm in a barbershop doing braids, then from braids, helping and assisting different hairstylists. And I knew that I was really good at making people look beautiful and feel good. It didn't look like me having a store. That didn't really work out the way that I wanted to because that was too much hustle for a mom, the way that I was doing that. But it did work when I start having events and I start making women feel really beautiful and they want to come and celebrate with me and just making you feel like all of the hard work you do throughout the year, you deserve to take the mom, wife, worker hat off and just chill and just, you don't have to have a briefcase always. It's like, we're just going to turn up tonight and it's just going to be a good time. And somehow those experiences I made turned into weddings and birthday parties. And then I started to learn other things, but it still is making people feel good at the end of the day. And that's just what I love to do.
I think it's safe.
We need all layers, so
it's safe to say that I'm 100%. I'm 48, and so I have. Listen, so I think that people. First of all, I have two beautiful boys, half Ethiopian, half Nigerian. I tell them they have the best part of the continent. They're beautiful boys, but there's no climatic purpose, destiny, and I think that's where we cheat ourselves because we're always looking to be that better, and you should be that better version of yourself. I'm 48. I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a lawyer or a police officer or a nurse. Didn't do any of that. A little bit of law, but not school. My father's an attorney, so I'm always in the office. I understand the legal system very well because my job is very, very dependent on legislation, policy making, and making sure I understand the law. But then I worked for a grocery brand, food retail. Like I would have never told you when I was an undergrad. I remember getting the call actually to apply for the job, and it was a friend from undergrad, and I was like, I didn't go to school to work for a grocery store. Little did I knew that there was a whole world within that, and I did it for almost 20 years. And here I am in my role now, and I think about, and Clarissa and I were talking on our way here about thinking about multiple streams of income. I'm in my season where I'm like very excited about investing. and pouring into other people and thinking about like what are we doing? What are we starting? Because I have young people around me. I lean on my mentors, and I still say till this day, anyone that's around me professionally, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know. I don't know. I love my job. I, get to work in a national organization where I get to work with destination marketing organizations across the country, London, Caribbean. I travel a lot. But honestly, like what fuels me is seeing people who just don't know what they want to do, but they're still brilliant. They're still creating. They still have this one or two niche things that people crave. And creating brands, actually, people follow brands where they have dope people behind them. It's not about that. I can buy a brown jacket from Louis Vuitton. I prefer to buy it from you because I see where the dollar is going. I see who created it. And so just think about like there's no climax to who you want to be. Just keep creating versions of yourself and creating brands that other people created, pour into them financially, advice wise, because there's really no one purpose. I feel like I have many different purposes.
Um, for me, I feel like the scarcity mindset, it doesn't go away because you always feel like you're not quite ready for something. I just got to finish this. I have to get this website a little bit better. You got to just start. You got to just start. It's such a block for your success if you continue to push yourself back and wait and procrastinate. Procrastination is the biggest issue in our community, I feel like. When I said power, like, look at how we shut down Target. We shut Target down. We had the whole Instagram black. That is power. So I feel like we need to make sure that we just do whatever it is we have to do. And when we put our minds to something as a collective, we can get so far, and we just have to stay in that mode. Just do it. I've taken L's because of procrastination. Literally, I have taken L's. Even simple things of like pay of a party that I might have had that I just didn't follow through. Sometimes it's like procrastination is very dangerous. And the faster you realize that is the better it is for you. So for me, that book that I mentioned to you guys, I wasn't saying it in passing, The Purpose Driven Life is very helpful. And I never read through the entire book. I kind of like refer back to it when I'm having a hard time. The Power of Now. Reading is really, really a strong tool, and you have to get in your books because no matter what conversations you're around, no matter what mentors you have to seek knowledge on your own. You have to be a seeker. You have to continue to be teachable. Yeah. Those things are very important. That's the only way that you'll separate yourself and get an edge. You have to read. You got to get in your Bible. Yeah. Yes. I'm not.
Just to define scarcity, I think sometimes, I mentioned, I think Kayla's been in my office at my previous role, and one Black executive in the whole office. But sometimes people think that they operate from a place of scarcity because they think there's only one seat. There's got to be one of one. If I tell you how I'm doing my social media, if I tell you how I'm doing my funnels, I'm making this up. I don't do this stuff because I don't have any funnels. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have an Instagram that she's trying to help me out. But people follow brands that people are behind. So I think that scarcity, specifically, I think speaking in our own Black community, is that this world, this country, and has conditioned us to think that there's only one seat in that boardroom. And that if we bring another brilliant Black man or Black woman in there, that there's going to be a problem. There's a confusion that there's only one paycheck. Really, there isn't. So if you have an opportunity to bring someone in, to put someone on, to pour into someone because they're doing something, I always use this analogy. It makes absolutely no sense, but I'm going to stick with it. You think about fast food, McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's. So like the fries at Wendy's, the burgers at Burger King. I'm making it up. I don't even eat this stuff. But I'm just saying, what is the problem? Why can there be more than one Hilina? Why can there be another store? Like I know Kayla doesn't gatekeep. I know from hearing you and getting to know you, you gotta be comfortable with the fact that there's only one Hilina, one Kayla, and one you. Period. And pour into people. Don't think that there's scarcity. They're not gonna steal your idea because at the end of the day, you are the only person that does that one thing. So I pull people in. There's, I think, 15 people now, 50 Black people. And my HR person is like, why do you keep hiring Black people? I'm like, why did you for the last 40 years only hire white?
Yeah.
Simple math. So just always bring people in because it's not cool to be the only one. The answer is yes, and I have to be careful. So the answer is yes. Um, I don't do well in spaces where there's just one or that you're compliant. First of all, I have to say, and I'm Ethiopian, we're very proud people. And so for me, I've always been raised, actually, it was in the United States that I think it was like I finally learned English enough to know the N word, and I didn't even know what it was. And someone called me the N word. So, what the hell is that? Now, I know I have fellow Ethiopians in the room. There's colorism in every country, but not in the way that it exists in this country. So I've never been raised to feel self-conscious. I was raised in Addis Ababa. I have two very proud parents. I love being a Black woman. I love being an Ethiopian woman. I have been in boardrooms. I don't code switch. Um, I just speak the English language the way I do. I speak Amharic. I speak English. I pretend like I speak Spanish often. Um, if you worked in food retail, you have to. I get paged to the service desk to speak Spanish all the time, so I'm about 75% proficient. But yes, the answer is yes. And I think that I've made a decision as a Black executive, an Ethiopian executive, that when that happens, I'm not a part of it. I've dismissed people from boardrooms. I don't have the appetite for it, but we have to do business, right? And so I can't tell people how they want to show up. Um, I do want to kind of, I think, underpin that with the fact that I am in a completely new organization right now. 100% of my team, it's a national coalition of Black media professionals. 100% of my team is Black. They're international. They're comfortable in their skin, and I feel settled. I feel happy every day. And not that I wasn't happy before, because I was always raised to adjust. But the answer is yes. There are people who just don't know their upbringing, did not tell them they can be themselves every day and fully. And I pray for them, but that's, not me.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. I feel like for me, being in certain spaces, especially in football, there's been days I've been sitting beside Elton John and Gayle King, Oprah. I'm in those spaces and I'm not code switching. I was the NFL wife that was wearing the long nails. I was putting it on. I was doing all the things. I wasn't trying to make myself small. I was just being myself. And you'll be surprised how much people will accept you. There's times that I used to go to dinners and I used to be like, what am I doing here? All these big wigs, everybody's talking all this big stuff. And I'm sitting there like, they're like, well, what market are you in? And what industry? And it's like, I'm sitting there like, I just do hair, or I'm just, and then when I sit and they ask me a question, what am I doing? I'm like, I make hair care products. And they're like, oh, we work for Johnson and Johnson. And I end up being the main person talking at the table. So it just, trusting yourself and knowing that you're unique, knowing that you're special, even if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, or if you don't have the big accolades, knowing that you really are who you think you are, and standing in that and making sure you spread whatever it is that you're given in whatever room you're in. And my kids are Black kids in a predominantly white school. I make sure that they know. When I have opportunities or my kids all compete with dance, I make sure that I tell people, bring your kids here. Let's get this whole thing a little bit Black. I want the whole room to be mixed in and look like us too, or I want my kids to stand out in the crowd, and they're going to stand out in the crowd. I want to make sure that there's more of us. I don't want it to be only us. We're the only ones. That's not even a flex to me. It's just not. It's nothing special about just being the only anything. If you can't bring people with you, then where are you even going? So that's just the way that I see it.
That's big what you said.
Thank you.
I'm still working on boundaries every day. It's like I think it's a daily thing. So, we went from one vendor to now we're catering to over 300 vendors. So it's I had to learn that, right? Because if I didn't, then I would end up being in a place where I didn't enjoy this anymore. Because I want every vendor to feel like they're the one vendor, right? But in reality, there's 300 vendors, and again, I want to cater to each individual person, but then that person only just sees me, right? And so I had to learn so that I didn't get to a space where, again, burnout and all that comes from lack of boundaries. And so you learn, again, from consequences, right? And again, but it's something that I'm working on every day, because as you grow, new boundaries have to develop. Certain things you didn't have to create boundaries for, now you do, because again, it's so many people that you're trying to keep happy, and you're trying to make sure that their needs are met, and you're trying to make sure that their brand is getting visibility and they're growing. And I care about what I do. And so I do always have to take a step back and tell myself, okay, are there areas where I need to create stronger boundaries that I'm not? It's a daily work. I don't think it's a answer of like, yeah.
It never stops, the struggle of that, because for me, being from Boston, and then in 2008 I met my husband, and he is drafted first round pick of the Patriots, and it ends up being a huge thing, and people just are waiting for you to change. You're just minding your business, doing everything regular. I'm still working. Even now I'm still working. I don't really have to work, but I'm still hustling. You know what I mean? So if I don't think I need to sit home and just get everything handed to me, why do you think I need to just give you, like, why do, you know what I mean? Yes, we do need to have boundaries, because you're getting confused. So with that being said, I feel like you have to redirect always. I was a big personality online, sharing every little thing, showing my kitchen and what I'm cooking. And then I realized for a little bit, if I stopped cooking for a couple of days, it's like, what's going on? Is she okay? What's going on with her life? People are just they just feel so entitled to your life, and it gets a little bit scary. And I had to put a hard boundary on my life. Right now, y'all are seeing like selfies. You might see a little snow. You might see a little backyard, a puppy, but I had to put a hard stop to sharing my life, because people just started to feel too entitled to things that I didn't have to share. You know what I mean? I made a choice to share those things, but it just started to get a little, like, even right now, there's a story running right now that Gerard is in a hospital dying. And I put out a statement, and it's like, I'm sitting here chilling. I'm about to go to Mariah the Scientist when I leave here. Like, I don't really know what that came from, but the stories just get crazy. It gets crazy, and you can't even put a handle on it sometimes. You just got to shut it down. You got to know that the followers are cool, all that stuff is cool, but sometimes you got to shut that all the way down for your mental health, because it's dangerous.
Since you're wearing the fit, you
I
get
know,
to go
I have to go first. I gotta represent.
Let's see what you gotta
We just
say.
turned around and looked at you.
Oh gosh, I feel like I fight with that every day, to just take that in and know that I'm different. We are all different, right? But for me, it's really realizing the abilities that I was given, that when I look around, other people do not have, right? And so you said, what was the moment? I don't know that I have one moment. I think, like I mentioned, from 9 years old when I came here, and I again was watching my mom rebuild from nothing. Talking about going from having our own house to now we're living with people, sleeping on the floor, like all of that, right? And I remember, people would always tell me, "You're so smart. You're so smart." Because I loved reading books. I loved writing. My mom would tell you, I started talking before I walked, and she couldn't get me to be quiet after that. And so, at that moment, I said to myself, like, I'm going to use what people have been telling me, like everyone tells me. And when I was in school, I loved school. Like, I enjoyed learning, I enjoyed that. And so from that very early age on, I started embracing the things that made me me. And then fast forward to, now where I'm in the business and I'm helping other people and I'm building the community that I always wanted to have around me. It's like every day I'm like looking at myself in the mirror. It's that acceptance of me, and that acceptance of that I don't have to be like everybody else, and I can do it the Keyla way. Like Hilina mentioned, like there's only one Hilina, there's only one Keyla, only one Chantel, right? And knowing that, I can walk my own path the way that I see fit in my heart, because people, the same way they'll point out what's good about you and they'll point out those things that make you they're also going to create insecurities for you, right? And they're also going to put their own plans on you, and you should do it this way and you should do it that way. And so it's a lot of self-talk. I talk to myself a lot. I drive in a quiet car because I need to talk to myself so that I can remember what makes me different is what I need to embrace every single day.
I love that you drive in a quiet car.
I do.
I do too. God, that's a good question. And I think I sat here and thought about different parts of my life where I maybe had that thought that, well, I'm not the same as everyone. And that's a blessing, by the way, because I think we spend a lot of our time trying to fit into a mold, fit into expectations, whether it's culture, parents, and sisters, and brothers, and you name it. But I think the first time I realized I was going to have to reckon with just my journey, I was 15. I had just finally understood the English language, like fully. I used to say some wild things, like I didn't understand what I was saying. But my father had decided that 2 years of high school was enough for me. He pulled me out of school. I started college at 15, and I remember sitting in class and saying to myself, first of all, I was broken up because I'm like, I'm not going to get to do the prom because American kids do the prom. Clearly, I'm not there anymore. But I realized, I think it was then, it was with tears, and I think seeing my sisters and having these conversations, I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to walk to the beat of my own drum. And from, undergrad to grad school to figuring out how to always be underage. No, I'm not, but I'm always being the one that was smuggled into parties, and I was always a liability. I realized that I had to really, really walk my own beat. That has helped me now that I am 48. I'm a mother of two, young men. I realized that I did not have to answer to the world. The world had to answer to me. And so I try to create a world where, if it's not comfortable, I exit. I'm a very, very loving person. I'm emotionally invested. And so I'm careful with the rooms that I'm in. And if it doesn't feel like I fit in, I'll do you a favor and I'll exit. I wasn't always that way. I was always in that room with the big eyes trying to figure out, like, how can I make these people love me and why I want to be here? I think she's dope, he's dope, I want to buy this. Now, at this point in my life, I think it was at that point I started thinking about it, and through tears and failures, if you want to call them failures, which were successes, I figured out that I'm different. And there's only one Hilina, and so I just reckon with that reality. I pray a lot, and I do everyone a favor. I run 5 miles every day, or walk, and then we're all good for the day. But that's how I figured it out, yeah. It's February. Tomorrow's tomorrow. You should start. But you're doing it tomorrow, right? I do it every day. Oh, and that's you being you. For tomorrow, right? You're right. Yeah. It's Sunday.
So for me, it was more like the struggles of growing up. I didn't grow up in an easy situation, single parent home. My mom and my grandmother raised me and my 3 siblings. And like I told you guys, I wasn't able to leave my school and then go on to college. I was fortunate to go to a school that was at Northeastern. So I was, I had the upper hand on that. But at the same time, I had to figure it out. I moved out of my house at 17. I was living in a rooming house, paying $125 a week, probably getting paid $200 a week and making the rest stretch. But I had hustle, I had ambition, and I maintained that. Even when I met my husband and he was up, I still was like, I'm still working. And people would ask me, why are you still working? Because I have more hustle than you. Because I have more ambition than you. To this day, I'm not gonna not work because I have 3 daughters that are watching me. I don't want my daughters to think that you just need to sit home and just wait for somebody to take care of you. What happens if they stop? What happens if they stop? So, you got to make sure that you're on point. You got to make sure that you're being a good example to your kids, to your family. You have to make sure that you maintain your sense of self, because you'll lose that in the middle of whatever somebody else has going on. There were times that I had to really check myself and recalibrate, like, who are you? Just a mom, like, who? You know what I mean? There's so many more other things that I'm interested in, things that are defining who I am than just motherhood or, just staying at home all day and just knocking out babies. There's so many more things to do. So I did that. For me doing hair, once I was home and pregnant, I built a salon in my home. I started to do all the girls on the team. I was making bank doing that. More money than I was making at the shop. So I was like, okay, you just pivot. You just figure it out. Then I'm like, okay, now I have all these kids. I can't do hair. I don't have time to do hair. So now let me make a kid store. Get them dressed, take pictures of them, sew the clothes. Ran that up real quick. Then I move into something. You just keep figuring it out. If you're hungry enough or you have the ambition, you just keep figuring it out. You just pivot, believe in yourself, read those books, pay attention. The knowledge is out there if you go seek it. And I think that is enough to tell you that you're different. The situations you create for yourself will remind you every day and show you that you're different. You think that there's not 20 different dudes that probably could have the same type of clothing line as you, but here you are. We're sitting here, and now I'm gonna go back to my house and I'm gonna go look up your sweatshirts on the website. I need to get some for my kids.
I want one too.
Then they're gonna be out that way. There you go. But you see what I'm saying? It's just like you put yourself out there. That's what separates you. Who knows who? Like, let me bring one to Mariah. Like, I don't know. It just gets that big if you put yourself out there, and that's what makes you different. So I think that's just that simple.